You are the new CEO of a brand new startup company ready to launch your brand new product, a smartphone. Here is your chance to be one of the top distributors in the digital economy. But in order to do so, you're gonna have to be pretty business savvy by setting prices for your products, streamlining your production, capitalizing on the latest tech, manufacturing goods, and handling logistics and sales. Hi, my name is Tim Chuon. I make board game cinematics, and today I'm hosting my very first ever tutorial here on the Dice Tower. Today I'm going to show you how to play Smartphone, the base game, along with the latest expansion, Smartphone Update 1.1. So first off, main board is going to go right in the center, and then you want to give each player one of these organizers filled with 3 types of markers. The progress markers, these look like a staircase. You have office markers that look like a building, and goods markers, which are cubes. Every player is also going to get 2 pads. One has a black tablet symbol, and the other one has a white tablet symbol. You can also give everyone a screen of their choice, and then each person is going to follow what's listed on their screen. So for example, here it says Australia as the home region, meaning you're going to put your office right in Australia in the first slot on the left. And then follow that up by putting a goods marker matching your color on the victory point scoreboard. Another goods marker on the left side of the main board in the red price block. Set them at number 5 to start, and also make sure that it's in the same order as the colors on the victory point block as well. And then you also want to take an improvement tile that's listed on your player board. And the last part of the setup, let's put some retailers on the map. Notice here how you have a small, medium, and large tiles that represent retailers. We're going to set up for a 2-player game today, so that means we're going to put a random side of a small retailer for Canada and another small retailer for the Caribbean. Since we're playing with Australia and North Africa, we're also going to cover all the other medium-sized regions as well. From here, you want to put a random set of improvement tiles in this yellow section, and then purple square patents that are 1 number higher than the listed number in these slots shown here. And then technologies, pick a random side and put them in the slots next to the patents. And that's it for the setup. So how do we play Smartphone? Well, you have 5 rounds in the game, and they're marked with the black rectangle up top shown here. And each round has 8 phases, also used with another one of the black markers. As you can guess, each phase goes from left to right, and once you finish phase 8, then we move on to round 2 and so on. So on your turn, you start phase 1, planning, by placing one pad on top of the other behind your screen so no one can see. When you place your pad, it has to be parallel or it has to be perpendicular. And each pad has to cover 1 to 4 cells on the other pad. And now you may be asking a very valid question. What the heck am I covering? So whatever symbols that you show, those are going to be called active symbols. And we're going to go over each symbol one by one because they do come up in different phases. So for now, let's just say that we cover up 1 cell just like this. So in this phase, once you understand what each symbol means, you can also now use improvement tiles to modify your pad if you want to. It's all going to make sense in 1 second. So let's just focus on the black crate symbol, which tells you how many phones you're going to make. So now you're trying to figure out, okay, so first off, these are the phones that I'm trying to make. So now how much should I sell those phones for? And at the start of each round, everything is going to be set to 5. Then you're going to look back at your pads and adjust your price. So since I have 1 negative dollar sign, it's going to drop my price to 4. And now we move on to phase 3, production. So here is where we're going to be making all of the goods or the phones. So now you want to count all of the black crate symbols because these are the active phones that you're making. And then you also want to include all of the cells that you've covered. So those 2 counts give you a combined total of all the phones that you've made. So for example, green here, I have 5 phones because there are 2 black crate symbols and there are 3 cells that I'm covering. So I'm going to take 5 cubes and then put them in the available goods section on the bottom right of my tray. Now we move on to phase 4, improve production. So whoever has the lowest price set is going to go first. And if there's a tie, then the player with the lowest amount of victory points is going to have priority. In phase 4, you're going to take 1 out of 2 actions. If you see this yellow symbol on your pad active, aka if it's showing, then you take 1 improvement from the improvement block. If the yellow symbol is not active, then you take a goods token instead. So both the new improvement and the goods token can be used starting in the next round. So now, how do we use improvements? So we all started with one of these and you just place them on your pad once you finish planning in phase 1. You just have to make sure you're following 2 rules. 1, the improvement has to be face up, and 2, it has to cover 2 cells of the pad. Any cells covered by an improvement is considered inactive. Improvements can overlap each other as long as they don't fully cover each other. And any or all of an improvement can be covered by another pad. If you don't want to use an improvement, you can put it face down in front of you because it's going to produce 1 good in phase 3. You'll also notice that there's a little lock icon on the back of each improvement, and this tells you that you can't put it face down on a pad. So in turn, the yellow goods token can never be placed on a pad at all, hence why you'll also see a lock icon on there as well. Now, these yellow goods token also makes one product in phase 3 as well. All right, so lots of terminology here. What is going on? So all we've done so far is we've placed 2 pads overlapping each other, and this is going to tell us how many goods that we're producing later on. In phase 1, we can also take our improvement token, if we have it, and put it on a overlapping cell as well. Overlapping cells, it has to cover 2. If not, we can put it face down, and then it's going to produce 1 good later on. And then in phase 2, we're going to set the prices of said phones, adjusting them lower or higher depending on how many money symbols are showing on each pad. Whoever has the lowest price is going to have priority in phase 4. Now in phase 3, we're going to make all of those phones by counting up all the black crate symbols active, and then any cells covered by an improvement tile do not count. We then put those cubes in the available goods section of our organizers. And in phase 4, it's time to improve production. So if you have the yellow symbol active, you can take any improvement you like from the improvement block, and if the yellow symbol is not active, then you take the goods token instead. Now we move on to phase 5, research technology. So tech can boost our sales or give us some pretty helpful bonuses. For each active purple gear icon that you have showing, you now receive 1 progress marker that's used to track research at the very bottom of the main board. So see how each phase introduces a new symbol? So following the previous priority rule set, each player is going to use one of these progress markers to purchase different tech, and the costs are shown right here. If you have enough to split it across different technologies, you are allowed to research different ones if you want to. You don't have to spend progress markers, but if you don't use them, then any unused markers are going to disappear at the very end of your turn. So these markers stay here until you've paid for all your tech costs, and once you meet the cost requirement, then you can take back your progress markers and then put an office marker there instead at each technology that you've researched. You have now gained the benefit of that technology for the rest of the game. If you are the first player to reach that technology, you also take the patent as well. So let's go ahead and talk about patents real quick. The number in red is how many victory points they're going to be worth at the end of the game. The cost to research that patent is listed on the top left. And once you take a patent, the cost for that technology is going to decrease by 1 for all other players. So let's say you're competing for the gamepad, and green places the last marker needed to take the patent. Now black is going to gain the technology on their turn since it's 1 cheaper now. Okay, so a couple more phases left. After researching technology, now we're going to move on to phase 6, logistics. Again, starting with the priority rule, everyone started with 1 office in their home designation, but now we want to increase sales, and it is time to expand. So if you have a blue truck symbol face up on the pad, then you gain 1 progress marker to place on any region connected to your home office. 1 progress marker per blue truck symbol. So if green's home office is in North Africa, I can place progress markers in South America, in Europe, in China, or in the Emirates. You want to pay attention to the black lines that are connecting to your home city. Once you meet the requirements for progress markers, take them back and put an office there instead in that region. New offices will always go from left to right, and if that region is full, then you can't put an office there. You can only have 1 office max at each region. And then we move on to phase 7, which is selling goods. So still following the priority rule, now it's time to sell the goods you produced in the available goods section of your organizer. You can only sell if you have an office in the region with no retailers, and if there are available buyers in the region who's ready to buy the goods. And if there are available buyers in the region who's also ready to buy phones. Phones, goods, products, all synonymous. So let's say your price is set at 5. A red square means the buyer will not pay more than what's shown in the square. So that means I can't sell to the 3 buyer in North Africa. Reason why? I'm asking for more than what the buyer is willing to pay. But I can sell to the 6 buyer because my price is set at 5 and it's less than what the buyer is willing to pay. A purple buyer on the right side is willing to pay for any price of the goods as long as it's not higher than the price set, and only if the player has the technology required. You can sell 1 phone to each buyer, so other players can't sell to the same buyer that you sold to, and any that you can't sell are lost and returned to your cube section. Make sure you're also selling your phones from left to right. And now we reach the final phase, phase 8, receiving victory points. Now each player is going to count all the phones that they've sold across the globe, aka all of your cubes on the board, and then multiply them by their price. So looking at green here first, green sold 2 phones in North Africa and 1 in the Emirates. Green's phones are selling for $5 a piece. So 5 times 3 phones, and that's 15 victory points. Black, on the other hand, only sold 2 phones priced at $4 each, bringing Black's total victory points to 13. And then we also score bonus victory points by looking at who is dominating the market in each region. So whoever sold the most phones in a region is going to be the one controlling it, and they're the ones that gets victory points listed in the red square. If a player doesn't sell any phones there, even if they have an office in that region, they don't get any points because they made no sales. Now normally, it would just be, for instance, 2 points for the player controlling North Africa, and then 3 points. But now in the third box, the region is rewarding first and second place. So 5 points for the person who sold the most phones, and 2 points for the person who sold the second highest amount of phones. Again, ties are resolved by giving to the player who is lowest on the victory point track. So now let's bring it home and I'll give you a 3-player example. Green is in first place and sold the same amount of phones as black and red. But green is the furthest on the left side, so green scores 5 points since 5 points is rewarded for first place as shown by the box the red office is located in. And then red gets 3 points because red's phones are sold furthest to the left compared to black. So now to finish off the round, all players are going to remove their phones, aka cubes, off the board and then put them back into the organizers. Improvements on the board are now removed from the game and 5 new improvements are added in to replace them. The price block also gets reset to 5 and the round marker now moves on to the next slot. If you're playing with retailers, all they do is just prevent players from selling phones in their region. But in phase 6 logistics, you can still put an office in the region once you have enough progress markers there. So instead, an office would now go on the retailer region, which is the black tile, again from left to right, scoring whatever points that is listed there in red. Now, if a retailer has a one-time bonus, you can choose to use it now if you want to. So to recap, how does the turn work? First, you plan out the production of all phones, tech and logistics overlapping on the pads, and if you have them and you want to use them, you can also use improvements now if you want to. You can use improvements or flip them face down so they count as one phone produced in phase 3. Then you need to figure out, okay, how much should I sell my phones for, which is determined by the money symbols shown by the black crates active on your pads. Moving on to phase 3, it's time to make the phones. So you count up all the phones you can make by counting all the black crate symbols that are active and all the covered cells. Then you have to make sure that the production of the phones is at the best it can be. So take 1 improvement if your yellow improvement symbol is active, and if it's not active, take a goods token. If you end up using an improvement that you just got, make sure that it overlaps face up on the pad. After you've improved production, you then want to research the best technology to produce your phones. So then you get progress markers depending on how many purple gear icons that you have active, and then put those progress markers on the research track. And once you meet the cost of that technology, you can put an office there, and if you're the very first player to reach it, take the patent as well. Now after that, we go on to phase 6. Now we want to expand to other regions and gain progress markers for each blue truck symbol on our pad. Again, putting an office in the leftmost slot once we meet the requirement in a region. And then time for us to make some money and sell our phones to buyers who meet or have a higher price set than what you're asking for. So if my price is 4 and the buyer is asking for 5, then now you've sold the phone to that buyer. If you have the technology required as well, you can also sell a phone to that purple buyer. Just make sure that someone has met the price of the red buyer. And lastly, time to see all of your earnings by counting victory points for every phone that you sold on the map, and also check to see which regions that you control in order to gain your bonus victory points. Now everyone removes cubes from the map, remove and replace all improvements, reset prices to 5, and move the round marker to the next slot. The game lasts 5 rounds, and then you count the victory points that you received during the game and add victory points for any patents that you've collected, and then also add in victory points earned from any retailers, and that is how you play the base game of Smartphone. For a draw, whoever has the most technologies win, and a double draw goes to the players with the most patents. So that was the base game. Now for update 1.1, the expansion, there are 4 different modules that you can use separately, or you can also mix them in together. Up to you. They're super quick, so let's go over number 1 first. So first up, you have the Directors module. These are common goals that all players can chase after. You'll shuffle them and draw 5, 6, 7, and 8 for 2, 3, 4, 5 players respectively. Now all you do for these is as soon as the current active player fulfills the directive, they just take it. Simple as that. You can choose to take the directive in a later round if you want to. The reason why a player would want to do that is if they want to kind of go after a different directive in the meantime, since you can only take 1 directive per round. And then at the end of each round, you want to flip the directive that you collected face down in order to help you remember that you got it from the previous round. The second module is the 2 to 3 player board module. This one basically condenses the board for a smaller player count. So the main change are that a new board goes in the center. Players will rotate picking a company, and the last player to go chooses their starting region from the 3 medium regions on the board and then puts their office there. If you're playing with 2 players, you'll put retailers in the small and medium regions of your choice. The rest of the setup is exactly the same as the base game. Now what's new about this module is that the 2 to 3 player board introduces a brand new type of buyer. This buyer has mixed demands. You can sell to these buyers if you meet either or both of their requirements, but you still can't sell more than 1 phone to each buyer despite meeting both requirements, again selling from left to right without skipping. Module number 3 includes a set of 10 new technologies in 5 groups of 2. For these, you just mix them in as you like. There aren't any new rules, you simply just put them in play and can refer to the rulebook for full details behind each new technology. And the final module, module number 4, is hardcore mode. For this mode, you're gonna have to pay for all of your actions. So you're gonna immediately gain money that you earn, but at the cost of paying interest on your debts. So same gameplay, but half the phases have additional steps, starting with phase 2, where you set prices. After everyone's made their decisions, and starting with whoever has the lowest price, each player now has to pay the bank for each icon that they have on their decision. This excludes icons with a lock symbol. Now lock symbols give you a discount of 2 with the minimum being 0. In phase 3 production, you have to pay 1 for each phone that you produce. In phase 5 research, you get the victory points for the patents immediately after gaining them. And after you place all your progress markers, you get or pay interest. So if you have less than 0 victory points, then you have to pay 1 for each negative 10 victory points that you have, rounding up. If you have more than 0 victory points, then you get 1 for each 20 victory points that you have, rounding up. And the last little modification here is in phase 6. So if you're playing with retailers, you get all the victory points from them as soon as you place your offices. But if you later move to your offices, you lose those victory points. At the end of the round, if you're playing with directives, you get victory points for any directives that you've completed after flipping them over, meaning at the end of the game, you do not count victory points for patents and retailers since they were already counted. And that is how you play smartphone along with update 1.1. Thank you for joining us here at the Dice Tower, and we'll see you in the next one.